Well, my hope for the social finance movement is that it really reaches and touches communities that are in need of finance. And those communities are often communities in rural areas, people of color and women, lower castes, people who are often marginalized and excluded. And what I want to see in the future is a social finance marketplace that includes them, that in fact puts them and their financing needs at the center of strategy. And in order to do that, it means that institutions like the Ford Foundation have to think more creatively about how we use our assets to benefit the poor and marginalized and vulnerable people around the world. The last 50 years has been about the 5% of grant making we do. The next 50 years is going to be about the 95% of our assets that we do not deploy currently for social mission purposes, and that we should be considering as we think about our mission, how to deploy that capital. And so for me, this is a moment of inflection, it's a moment of reflection, and a time to recommit ourselves to our core values. And in order to really do that with the kind of robust inputs that we need, we've got to think about how we use all of our assets, not just our grants. We hope first for the Ford Foundation to significantly improve the affordable housing system in the United States, to produce more affordable housing units that in turn make it possible for families to live with dignity, to preserve housing that is at risk of becoming market or being taken off of the market for affordability for low and moderate income families. In the Global South, our focus is going to be on financial inclusion, and so we seek to invest in those funds that are delivering products and services to low-income communities. There is almost $1 trillion in this generation that is deployed in foundation endowments. Imagine the potential if we were to unleash 10% of that number towards social objectives, towards improving the environment, towards building more affordable housing. These are really important objectives that cannot be achieved through our grant making alone. Well, at the Ford Foundation, we talk about our values of equity, justice, fairness, dignity. In order to do this, it's easy to put signs on the walls around the office with those words. It's much harder to actualize a lived experience that truly reflects those values. In order to do that, leaders like me, we have to get uncomfortable. And the institutions that are privileged, we have to ask ourselves, how are we using our privilege? We can't deny or pretend that it doesn't exist. The question is, how are we deploying that privilege? The same way we ask, how are we deploying our capital? How are we deploying our privilege towards mission? And so we have to get really proximate. So we have to go and get that knowledge and get those people to be a part of our organizations in order for us to truly live our values. I see the MRI movement in philanthropy as essential to achieving our objectives. We will not solve the challenges of inequality, of poverty, of gender discrimination without the private sector engagement. And so we need public, private, and philanthropy working together to solve these challenges. There is money to be made, not necessarily the kinds of money you might make in a very high yield, super high risk investment, but there are attractive returns for investors. And there is nothing better than feeling good about a social impact, about building housing, community revitalization, providing financial services to the poor. Nothing would make me feel better while still doing well financially. I mean, I think the insight that we have today around the world is that growing inequality is harmful to democracies. It's harmful because inequality produces hopelessness. And when people become hopeless, they truly lose faith in their systems, in their community, and even in their own capacity to contribute to social change. How do we build economies that produce employment, that provides a dignified livelihood, and that provides people with hope and the belief that social mobility and that stability in terms of their own family structure and income is possible? That's the great challenge for our generation at this time.